I will call a meeting of the Conservation Commission for February 18th open. I will entertain a motion to approve our minutes from February 4th.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Moved. First on the agenda is a public hearing for 400 Manley Street. You want to set up? I will read it into the records. Under the Wetland Protection Act, Chapter 131, Section 40 of Mass General Law is amended, and the West Bridgewater Wetland Protection Bylaw Rules and Regulations, and the West Bridgewater Stormwater Management Bylaw, the West Bridgewater Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing February 18th, 2020, in the McDonald Brown Conference Room, 65 North Main Street, for a notice of intent filed by Gamerency Property Group LLC for a redevelopment work and solar project at 400 Manley Street. And we're open. And the butter notices?
Yes. Most of them came back here, the green cards. There's a list here.
You can give them to me and I'll put them right into the record.
Yep. So,
Thank you.
the white slips are there as well.
Yep.
They were all sent out.
Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is David Kelly with Kelly Engineering Group. I'm here with Joe Cogan of Gramercy Property, who are the owners of the property. They purchased it a number of years ago, and they have two tenants located in the property. It's 400 Manley Street. This plan shows the property. This is the grading plan. I'm sorry, can you see it okay?
I've got
We've
it
got
on
it on
here
the-
too.
Oh, okay. And I assume the television can still see it
Yep.
if he's videotaping it. Okay. So on the right side of the plan is Manley Street. As you head back into the site, there's a wetland system located at the rear of the property. You're probably all familiar with the building. The site's about 19.3 acres. The building's 189,000 square feet. Currently, there's parking located at the front of the building, the side of the building, and then there's additional parking here. Trailer storage sort of parallel along the back of the building. There are two tenants currently in the building. There's a company called Specialty Commerce Corp, who are located in the front of the building, and have parking for their tenants and for their employees and customers located here, a little bit here, and then also in the very back here. There's a second tenant, M&M Transportation, located in the rear of the site. They're more of a distribution type facility and have a lot of active trailer storage. So the goal of the project is to really create a safer site. So today what happens is there's vehicular parking for tenants, the tenant in the front of the building here, and they have to find their way across and up through a fairly busy loading area. Which leads to the possibility of safety issues. So what we're proposing to do is to sort of solve all these problems in one go, some of which is under your jurisdiction. So what we're going to do firstly is expand the parking in the front of the building to add more spaces so that tenant has parking that's closer located to their door. Secondly, we're going to reconfigure the parking in this area to make it more efficient again so that there's more parking closer to the door. Thirdly, we're going to create an area back here for trailer storage. Currently, if you were out on the site, you would see that trailer storage is sort of jammed back in this area. To some extent, it extends beyond the pavement. This orange line represents the limit of current pavement. And so what we're hoping to do with your permission is to expand the parking lot here and here to provide the ability for the trailer storage so that we can relocate the car parking spaces up to the front and have this primarily for the loading area connected directly to the tenant. If you're to look at this plan, you'll see that this purple dashed line reflects the Wetlands Line. It's located essentially at the edge of a swale that was built as a part of the construction of the building. That swale extends up along the side of the building, continues down through here, and then there's a stormwater management pond in the back left of the site if you were to go to the very back of the site. Associated with that, there's a 50-foot buffer zone, your 50-foot protected zone, and this furthest line out represents the 100-foot buffer zone to the wetlands. So in order to allow this to happen, we're requesting relief from your 50-foot no disturb. We think the relief, not only would it benefit the site on a safety measure, but there's some other benefits that we can provide to the Commission and to the wetlands and the bank. Firstly, what we're proposing to do is to upgrade the stormwater management system on the site. This plan, though it's a little difficult to see from here, represents some new subsurface recharge systems that will take either the clean roof runoff or pavement, which we will treat in proprietary water quality devices, storm scepters, and recharge it back into the ground, and then only allow that overflow to extend through these areas. In the front of the site, though out of jurisdiction if you like, we're doing the same. There's a water quality device and a stormwater management system. We provided you and John with a full stormwater management report, and if you were to look at that, you'd see that we're able to bring down the total peak runoff from the site for all storms from the 2-year up to the 100-year. In addition, as I noted, we have water quality benefits that we're proposing. Today, there is not a really well-defined edge at the back of the site, and so the development is sort of sneaked out, if you like, beyond the limit of pavement, and on certain days you would see trailers have sort of backed out over the existing limit of pavement. What we're able to do is propose a curb along this edge, and also because there's a slope there, there's going to be a short retaining wall that will further prevent encroachment into that buffer zone. So overall, even though we're within the 50 feet, we think we can bring to the table better water quality from the site, recharge, mitigation, and a really defined limit that will really limit what can happen on the site. A portion of the area that we're working in is already cleared. It's, in fact, a lot of it is already cleared. We provided the board with a chart that explains what's currently wooded and what will be wooded within both, what will be removed, if you like, within the 50-foot and the 100-foot. And just to give you some statistics, the pavement that we're proposing within the 100-foot buffer zone is about 21,000 square feet. Within the 50-foot buffer, the pavement area would be only 3,400 square feet, or 3,400 square feet, rather than saying only. And so the wooded area would reduce by about 6,000 square feet in its entirety through this area here. So overall, it's a reasonably modest encroachment into the 50-foot no disturb zone. But we feel that the combination of everything that we're providing here will ultimately benefit the wetlands at the rear of the site in the form of better stormwater management and defined limits of work. Mr. Chairman, that's just a brief overview. I'm pleased to get into any more detail that you might have, and Joe is here to answer any questions that you might have on the operations of the site.
Well, first off, we generally stick to the 50-foot unless there's really extenuating circumstances. So I'm going to ask, is there a replication area, an enhancement area, other than improving the stormwater quality for areas you're increasing pavement on?
Yes.
Because already you're making it an impervious surface that wasn't before, removing tree cover.
Yeah,
so
that's correct. So what we're doing is we're actually, and I neglected to note that there's an area here that's the closest point to the wetlands that we're actually going to restore. We're removing pavement through this area here. If you look at that orange line we talked about earlier, it extends down through here. There's an area over here that's paved in quite close to the wetlands, so we're going to remove that and revegetate it. All the areas that are disturbed will be revegetated, and there's additional areas that are today clear and yet non-wooded that we're proposing to revegetate as well. So there are benefits on the vegetation side as well.
How many square feet would you say
Yeah, they haven't.
In total?
that you plan on mitigating down at the bottom?
So that area, I think it's noted in the report, but I'm just gonna quickly give you a number. It's about 20, let me just make sure I got my scale right, I think I do. Yeah, it's about 2,500 square feet that we're going, it's actually within about 20 feet of the wetlands line. We're gonna revegetate that area. So we're pulling it back in that location. Yes, it's true, we're pushing it out in these other areas, but generally the furthest points from the wetlands.
What's the dock line right there?
This line, that's a retaining wall
That's gonna be
that will limit the work, essentially. That will be the limit of work.
So there's been encroachment then over the 50? over
There's been
time here?
encroachment in the form of clearing, I don't know how long ago, but it's been there as long as we've seen the site. And we've worked on the site with the prior owner many years ago, and it was the same. Essentially, it was cleared back here, and trucks kind of back out
There's
over
not
the
much
curb.
room, really, is
There's
there?
not a lot of room. It slopes down, and then you've got the swale back here that ties into the pond, to the stormwater pond.
So you said you're gonna have like a berm on that?
Yes, there'll be a curb here, and then a wall with a guardrail on top, so that you can walk out there and you'll know where the limit of work is, and
Okay.
an obvious limit of work.
How about the, any tractors gonna be stored back there? I know trailers will be, any tractors?
Trailers will be parked along here. I don't think do they store tractors?
They do currently, based on the feedback we've been given from the buildings department and the fire department, they're against the building. This would actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, legally bring them 25 feet from the building and actually line them up in stalls essentially, but yes, there would be, I think, 23 tractor spots, is that correct?
As well as the trailers here, Joe?
Trailers, yeah, sorry.
The
23
trailers. So I think they're asking about the actual truck itself.
They
Yeah.
don't, they have
Yeah.
like anywhere between 4 and 6 trucks on
Right.
site currently.
And there's other
Not
ar-
attached to the
Yeah,
trailers.
Right.
in the back.
Right, so these would be essentially, quiet, if you like, quiet.
Yeah,
clean
of course, our
trailers.
concern is oil dripping and how do you
Understood.
manage that type of thing?
Yeah.
The trailers, are they refrigerated?
They are
The-
not.
No, okay. I don't have to worry
They're
about that.
servicing big box retail stores with dry goods. Currently, they load out of the backside of the building, and I think, the main issue that we've uncovered is that we inherited a building that was significantly underparked for these two uses. So we're trying to figure out a way to
Right.
remedy that situation and increase both the ability to have two coexisting tenants that use and conform to what they want to use it for.
How much change in elevation is there gonna be when they filled in the new additional area?
Yeah, so the wall is as much as 8 feet high at this point. So the slope drops off quite quickly. When you're about 15 feet away from the pavement, it drops off pretty quickly. It's that 15 feet primarily where that encroachment, if you like, we've talked about, is located. So we would propose to fill this area here, and then the wall would be as high as 8 feet here, and as low as 1 or so foot on that corner, and the same on this side.
And the slope is towards the building, would you say?
Everything slopes back to the stormwater system. The pavement will slope back to the stormwater system, where it's all treated as we described. And so the concern with oil, we have a water quality device here, and another one here, and another one here, that have full oil storage capability and silt storage capability. And there's an operation and maintenance plan that we've provided the commission with that we would comply with.
And they don't have that now, right?
That's right. There was an old order of conditions from way back when the building was built. I think in the late '80s. We saw it in the title to allow work back in this location, probably to put that swale in. That swale was a man-made swale that was really designed to convey water from the front of the building to the stormwater pond when the building was built originally. But, over the years, obviously wetlands vegetation has grown and there's a bank associated with it. But it was originally constructed as a stormwater conveyance device like a lot of the older buildings had.
John?
Some of the issues that Mr. Kelly's mentioned as far as mitigation were kind of the result of preliminary discussions with me, and so I had suggested that not having a final plan or anything during those discussions, we didn't really get into how much more enhancement would be needed in those areas that had been encroached upon by landscapers and the trailer trucks, that kind of thing. So I think the order of conditions could address that and specify that, a certain amount of enhancement of those areas that will be revegetated needs to address buffer-type plants. So we can cover that part there. The second is I'm very glad to see that there is stormwater management systems being proposed where there was none before. And I understand they're enlarging the pavement and they'd have to do it anyway, but it's really taken an area that just discharges it out and doesn't treat it. And now it's going to be treated and recharged and kind of adhere to the stormwater regulation. The front part is truly new. That area between Manley Street and the dark line that you see, it's a retaining wall, is the dark line between Manley Street and the building, because they're gonna propose parking up there, which they really do need parking. Naturally, that's increasing the impervious surface up there, and they're also have somewhat of a slope that they've got to deal with. So I'm suggesting that because of that in our stormwater bylaw, that we have a 53G review that. And I'm recommending Allen and Major at an approximate estimate for initial review and a follow-up on any revision, just one follow-up on the revision for $4,000. That needs to be deposited by the applicant. And then it looks as if we don't have a DEP file number yet.
That's right. Their website was down today. I checked yesterday. A number wasn't issued. They'd received it clearly because they've noted it on their website, but there was no number issued, at least not on their website today, so we don't have a number yet.
So we would have to continue it
Yes.
to our next
Anyway.
meeting
Yes.
anyway, but I believe my quick review of everything, I don't really see any big issue. I just feel that because of the new portion that's being a substantial change to the site, that we need to have a 53G review it.
Yeah, there's a lot of stormwater upgrades.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big, hopefully they'll agree that what we're proposing is a benefit ultimately, but we have no problem with that, and,
It'll benefit you guys and us, so.
yeah, exactly.
What
We've
was
no
the
problem with
water
that, John.
like before?
How did it work?
How was the water situation?
Yeah.
And is it draining into the wetlands? Is it all over the place?
So the front drains out to a swale, that swale that runs along the side of the building, and ultimately over to here, there's a drain then that runs along here, and that's the beginning of the swale that we talked about that was built many years ago that extends all the way to the pond down here.
Right.
So the front finds its way over here. It's in the form of catch basins with no real treatment other than catch basins. Back here, there was a small subsurface recharge system put in. I'm assuming in reasonably modern one, possibly in connection with that order we mentioned a moment ago, and that overflows directly out into the wetlands here, as John pointed out. There's a second pipe down here that essentially picks up catch basins and just takes them right out to the swale, and ultimately to the wetland swale, and ultimately to the stormwater management pond. So what we're doing, as John pointed out, and maybe I didn't make it as clearly as possible, we're stopping all of these spots, treating them, slowing them down, and then releasing them treated out to where they originally went.
So there will be a discharge into the wetlands at the top?
Up here,
No,
back here?
yes.
Yes, it's actually an existing overflow
Okay,
that we're going to upgrade.
okay.
And then there's an existing one here, same thing, and this other one connects back to that.
Okay.
Anybody have more questions? Comments, audience?
I
Yes.
have a question, just for clarification,
Yeah.
what's a 53G? Is that a outsourced third-party
Yeah.
Yes.
review?
Yep.
That's fine, Mr. Chairman. So, and Allen and Majors, who you normally use?
Yep,
Yes.
that's who we've used in the past, and they've done pretty thorough work, and they can get it done
Yeah.
fairly quick.
Okay, great.
Um,
So when
We
you
have
get it,
no objection to that.
yeah, when you get it coordinated, just let us know, John, and we'll send everything directly to them, save you having to do that.
And
2 weeks?
next meeting, 2 weeks, John? Think that time?
We probably won't be ready, I don't think, or you
No.
won't have your review ready, so if you could.
Right, that's why I'm throwing it out there.
Yeah,
You wanna
yeah,
go a
yeah.
month from now?
I
Yes.
think if we may, we would prefer to come back here. I come in from New York ready and prepared,
Yeah,
as opposed to having to come a third time
right.
Yep.
in front of you. So I think Dave and I actually spoke about it. A month should give us enough time.
Can always move it.
Thank you very much, yeah, appreciate
All
it.
right. I'll entertain a motion to hire the 53G.
Motion to hire?
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And I'll entertain a motion to continue till the first Tuesday in March.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, would be the first or the second Tuesday, right?
Sorry, second Tuesday.
St. Patrick's
Enter-
Day.
Alter the motion to the second
Yes.
Tuesday,
And
or the second meeting of March.
Yeah.
So the third Tuesday of the month.
We get it?
Ending at the
17th. St.
Yeah.
Patrick's Day.
Yes.
I'll
D.
bring
Yes.
a
You won't-
barrel.
You won't
in
be
it.
around.
Thank you very much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next, we have 436 Manley Street.
West Street.
West. Read that into the record. Under the Wetland Protection Act, Chapter 131, Section 40 of Mass General Law is amended, and the West Bridgewater Wetland Protection Bylaw Rules and Regulations, and the West Bridgewater Stormwater Management Bylaw, the West Bridgewater Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing the 18th of February, 2020, in the McDonald Brown Conference Room, 65 North Main Street, for abbreviated notice of resource area delineation filed by Paul Noonan to verify a wetland at 436 West Street. And we're open.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. These are the green
I'll
cards.
take those.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Received. We did send out the notices. Basically, this time, we have an idea of what we might want to do with the property, but at the end, right now, we're just looking for accession of the BVW around the existing building. And parking area on the south side of West Street. Noonan has properties on both sides. On the north side where they have most of their offices. And they are probably looking to get additional parking for themselves. So, but right now, all we're looking for is a review of the wetlands delineation. We recognize Mr. Thompson, who did the delineation, delineated both the BVW and the riverfront. This was previously done by the late Dr. Walter Hewitson, and it was at the time John Paley Jr., who owns AP Alloys, owned this particular property, and the Noonans bought that from John Paley Jr. And basically they drag their proverbial backsides for a while, and didn't renew that delineation, and so it expired. And then obviously we couldn't get Dr. Wilson to come back because of
Unavailable.
the demise. Unavailable, exactly. And so Ken Thompson did a very substantial delineation, and quite frankly, it's too extensive that when we calculated the fees, it was going to be really astronomical under the local bylaw fees. So we only were looking at the areas that may potentially affect the project, and that's the area that we're looking to review and approve, hopefully, by the commission. And we concede the fact that there's a lot more resources on the property, but they will not necessarily be near where they might be doing the project. So, that's the, and I believe DEP has issued a file number for this, so.
I can't figure out what I'm looking at here.
John, is this the building that we had, that's been before us before?
Yes,
They put the
so.
drains inside and did some work on it? Okay, that's what I thought.
And so this is the parcel on both sides of it. It was flagged. We just don't know which flags that they want us to approve. So can you identify better?
Yes, sir.
Which,
So basically, we're looking to confirm flags KT-A1, that's the BVW, to KT-12, reading backwards. So these flags in this area here, these flags here.
So 1 through 12,
Yes,
or
so
that series?
that series from here, from our KT, it says here, right, 12, down
Okay.
over here,
Okay.
and then going northerly, and then back up to KT A1. We figured yes, these the one to the east,
From here.
Here.
to the
This
east
line.
of the property,
Not this.
will not
No.
necessarily be affecting the work. So we recognize it's in that jurisdiction, but we don't want to confirm anything on this side, because there's nothing that's going to be happening on this side.
And nothing's gonna be happening in the back?
No,
Okay.
no.
and so also we have Riverbank,
Yes, sir.
and you want to confirm just those.
Just this one here, because that's one that affects the area here.
So it's the riverbank here and the wetland line.
Yes, sir. So basically BF1 to BFA-22.
So this is, entire parcel is in a flood zone,
Yes, sir.
100-year floodplain. So, that is not indicated, I don't believe it's indicated on the plan, but we'll have to make a note of that on any ORAD that we issue for this.
Yeah, we recognize that, Mr. Chairman. The only reason why we didn't is just it's about the AE zone, which means that FEMA has established an elevation. So we will go by that elevation. We're not gonna be disputing that elevation.
So you're mainly interested in whether we have any problem with the delineation?
Yes, sir.
And when was that done again?
It was done in hold on.
Pretty long ago?
It was done March 31 through April 22nd, 2018.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's pretty new.
It's just that they told them that, they were not in a hurry to, until now, they're starting to getting pressed for areas.
So we don't really know what's gonna happen there.
I mean, it's not a question of that. Eventually, they're looking to see if they can fit a couple, even if it's 10 parking spots.
Yeah, it doesn't
That
look
one-
like much, but
Yeah, exactly. you know.
Yeah.
So anything will be better.
Yeah, yeah.
And I recognize Mr. Delano's comment about the whatnot and the floodplain. So what we're gonna try to do there is, so I've looked at the elevations. What we might try to do there is, the only time you're gonna do what we call a compensatory storage is if you're filling. So I wouldn't have a problem, and they're aware of it, designing the parking so it's underwater during the 100-year storm.
John, do you have anything? I mean, the lines look,
So, because I didn't know exactly what needed to be delineated, I now can go out there and actually review which ones, and they will then be able to comply with our $3 per linear foot fee, which that was in question, and the checks are still in the folder because we weren't sure what to do with them. So I still need time to now review that and the flags in the field, so I'm gonna ask for a continuance to the next meeting. Should be able to get it done by then, unless we get a blizzard.
And I have no problem. I mean, they've waited since 2018.
okay. Anybody, any other questions? All right, hearing none, then I'll.
We have a butter here tonight?
Any questions?
No, so where, so you going into the wetlands, or you just want to know where the wetlands are?
Right now, we're trying to get the approval of our delineation, because they have to agree that the delineation is properly representative of what's there. And then if they approve that, now we're going to come back and design our project, and then everybody will be re-notified again.
So this is the step that we just say where the wetland line is, then you'll get another notification saying there'll be a hearing once there's a project that's gonna happen on it,
Not like much.
so. But at least, going forward from here, they're looking at about 10 parking spaces is what they're looking for.
But are you looking to go into the wetlands, or you just?
No.
Want to know where the
No.
wetlands and that
Yeah.
property?
We-
He just
We
wants
try to
know
stay
where
out of
they are.
that,
Yeah,
so
that's what-
Yeah.
we'll see what he comes up with for a plan and
Okay.
then go from there, but,
10 could turn into 5.
entertain a motion to continue to
Motion
March
to
3rd?
Continue till March 3rd.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Delano, I sent an email for my other items before the commission,
Oh, okay.
so I'm actually pressed for time. I gotta go pack. My flight is at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. Hopefully we'll make it. My wife will be PO'd if I don't make it.
To say the least.
Yeah, so she's been, we haven't done any cruises or vacations by ourselves in 25 years.
Don't get no viruses.
Well,
Staying on
I'm gonna put a mask on my face.
One quick thing before you do run on that, is this for the South Street?
Well, he's mentioned that in there, that they would like that to be continued to April, the second meeting in April.
The lawyer, I tell you, I can punch somebody's lights out right now. Lawyers
The
are-
only question
Yeah.
the group has been having is that we opened that November 14th,
Oh, no,
18,
we'll
and
definitely
haven't had
notify the-
updates or anything's moved.
No, once we know that we are actually gonna be able to make that meeting, we will provide adequate notices to all the abutters. We just,
I think we should close it tonight and reopen it.
It's been open way too
April?
long.
And that's gonna put it,
no, if you close it, then we'll have to refile,
That's right.
and that's not really right, And then we're
Well,
gonna,
you haven't given us any information though either.
Well,
All they
the-
do is wanna keep on doing it,
So
well,
what you
we
could
were
do
here
is-
last time. You were gonna have your consultant review it. And that's where we're at. And then my client says, well, unfortunately, the owner of the property died. Okay? And so it's in probate. And an public administrator's been assigned to it. And they're just dragging their behind.
So what you could do is, if you did decide to close it, you could close it without prejudice, let them refile without the additional fees. And then, because of a refile, the abutters will be notified when they're really truly ready.
I think that's.
Yeah, then there won't be any fees or
Now,
anything like that.
question, since I haven't done this myself. Does DEP require a fee at that time if you refile?
Well, they usually leave it up to the commission.
Commission?
Yeah,
So,
so whichever way the commission goes, or we can actually ask, instead of refiling, ask for a reopen of that file. Then that would, would only require that notification of our butters. And then the question about filing fee will not come up. So if the commission does it that way, with the opportunity for us to ask for you to reopen the file.
I think the key is if it's without prejudice, then it means it gives them plenty, and us plenty of leeway to deal with it without penalizing them
Just
to.
removes it till we get going again.
Right.
But then if you close the hearing, then that means you have to issue a decision.
Denied without prejudice? Then could you could you ask to amend the order of conditions of a denial?
If you deny without prejudice, that basically allows us to come back. And then we can reuse that file number
So that's a way that they could ask us to amend that
decision.
order of conditions, which is basically a denial without prejudice. And that keeps them from having to do all the new filing fees.
Yeah.
They still have to notify butters. They still have to do the public hearing, but this might be the cleanest way so that nothing happens where an abutter gets left off or not.
Well,
not
that's
know.
right, they've forgotten about it by now,
Right.
I'm sure.
And we don't have to keep it on the agenda every single meeting to
Yeah.
continue and continue and continue.
And maybe it'll help keep them, okay, we better start.
Well, the only downside of, the only downside for my client is that potentially that our attorney will say, hey, sorry, you've already been denied, that cuts you out,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
yeah.
So do we just have to carry it on the agenda? Is that the only thing?
So what he's
Is it a
saying
big
is
deal?
that he's still got he still has a foot in the door.
Oh, so they could say, see you later, do you?
Right, if it's a denial, it says, gee, your project has already been denied, we can do anything, you're done.
Can we put it in the special order conditions to keep as we want?
No, it's really not so much me. I mean, I'm all set. I'm paid up. My client is very good. My client is very good. I'm just thinking, for what he's invested in it, that keeps him viable.
Oh, you
Legally.
and your client.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Well, not necessarily you, but you're talking about.
My
your
client's of agreement on the property.
Your
statement.
client isn't the estate, it's.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
that's probably
Yeah.
a good,
Good point.
yeah.
And then we will definitely notify the abutters. I have no problem. Even in my email, I said that.
Well, tell them one more time then.
I mean, it's been a year and a half almost now. I mean, how long do you keep an open hearing
Do you
going?
think that they would
Maybe-
even think that something would happen if they keep on doing it? I mean,
Well, okay,
was
so what I probably can tell my client is, because the only thing right now for my client is he spent all this money and now the guy dies, so what he's saying, if he invests more money like the 53G, which he didn't have any problem, literally, when we had the hearing and I went and told him, he actually wrote the check and then said, oh, pick it up. The next day, I'm going to pick up the check. He goes, I can't give it to you. I said, why? He goes, you died last night. We kind of knew the guy was in bad shape because he was doing a lot of this,
So it's in probate now?
Yes, yes.
I mean, I don't have a problem going till April, but it's when it was every 2 weeks or every month extending it.
Maybe that's what we'll do if we're not hearing anything, we'll
Yeah.
just do it every month or something.
Or every 3 months or
Something
2 months. I mean,
like
just
that, yeah.
kick it down so that we're not having people calling and wondering, is it that, is it, and not being able to plan
Yeah,
accordingly.
if
Yeah.
something happens sooner than that, let us know and hopefully it'll get done quicker.
yeah.
All right.
So is April realistic, or should it be?
Put it in May or even June.
Yeah, couple months. Let's
Then that way we're not taking up your agenda time.
Probate doesn't move very fast.
Especially when you have a bad attorney on that side milking it, unfortunately.
So you want to put it May 5th?
I didn't
May
name
5th
the
and
attorney.
Yeah, then maybe we'll decide then.
Yeah.
And if something happens before then, it can always, if it makes the deadline, put it back on the agenda. And notify the abutters, so that at
Yeah.
least that way there, everybody, if it's before then,
Yes,
but
sir.
otherwise, May 5th is the date to, and then we'll see where we're
Then
at.
the end date, that's the end date.
Okay,
So
thank
could
you.
Could you amend an email with the May
Yes,
5th?
yes,
Need
Okay,
to-
thanks.
yes, sir.
We will need a motion to continue the map 60 lot 22 South Street till May 5th.
Make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate it. I forgot to bring the check, so Heidi will drop off the check for Mr. Cruz.
Okay.
For his certificate of
Okay.
compliance. I have the check in my office. When I left, I was, crap.
Well.
Okay, so Heidi will drop it off tomorrow morning.
All right.
Get home and get packed.
Yeah.
Believe me, you should see the text messages I've been getting from my wife. If I keep responding, I can't get anything done.
She's got a plan on how to throw you over, boy.
Have a good vacation.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, then we took care of the map 60. Maple Street roadway, notice of intent.
We've received the DEP file number, which was the only issue, and so recommending closing and issuing.
All right, any questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing for Maple Street.
Motion to close.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And I'll entertain a motion to issue an order of conditions for the project.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
And a 50-foot waiver.
And a 50-foot waiver for work.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And 55 South Street.
The, Mr. Commode, the applicant, has been going through some very tough medical issues with reactions to high blood pressure medication, and maybe I shouldn't be saying all this out in public, but he has had some medical issues that have kept him from even coming to these meetings. But he has had people provide us with the fees that were required and have taken care of our concerns. And so this is a single-family home. I think I have the plan as part of one of your
Yep.
documents for this evening. They've addressed all of the normal stormwater issues. We need roof drains, we need a dedicated construction entrance, those kind of things, erosion control. So that's all been shown on the plan. And normally I would expect that he would be here to make his own presentation, but he does have those issues, so that I'm recommending that we do issue a stormwater management permit for the site based on the site plan items that they've indicated.
This is the one
Okay.
in the process.
I'm gonna-
of being built, right?
Right, this is the one closest to the yellow house, the old colonial,
Yeah.
the one
The old farmhouse.
closest to the road.
Yeah.
I'm only gonna throw 2 cents into this pot at this point, but looking at all of these that are being built recently, that are like islands out in the middle of wherever,
Yeah.
yes, it meets the bylaw, and yes, it meets our requirements, but you're changing an elevation from, it looks like 68 feet to 74 feet. Now, no matter what they do to capture the stormwater from the roof, the driveway, the yard has gotta drain somewhere. And it's draining off of their property into somewhere else at a higher rate of speed, going in another direction. I mean, you look across the street, how they built those all up, that water drains somewhere. It's either draining onto their neighbor's property or somebody else's or the roads. Going forward, I think we need to think about how these islands maintain their water flow and where it goes and,
I think it's gonna happen up on Charles Street too.
right, I mean, there's gonna be more and more of them happening.
So, under DEP regulations, they consider subdivisions with a certain number of lots, or if it's a condominium, a certain number of units and above, having to require stormwater regulations. Everything below, they figure is such a small drop in the bucket that it's not an issue. But we all know that something like Charles Street, where you have 3 or 4 in a row, or South Street, where you have 3 or 4 in a row, they all start to accumulate runoff that does now impact the wetlands or the abutters or the street. And these minimal types of things that we have them do, such as a roof recharge or erosion control, only kind of helps a little bit. And I think what Tim is saying is that we're seeing that there's more of an impact from these things because of the amount of fill on certain lots, where it's not a fill situation that might be a little different, but where you have the fill, perhaps we should just say, we're going to expect that you create some type of stormwater basin, which means that if you're filling, you've got to now take some out somewhere else to help trap some of that water. And yes, you may have a water
Detention.
A temporary water problem or
basin.
basin or
Yeah.
something on your property, but you're not putting it all onto somebody else's. You get a 100-year storm, which is now happening every 10 or 12 years or more.
5 years.
And I mean, so you're putting a 100-year stormwater onto somebody else's property constantly. And I mean, it just, I think we're gonna see more people coming in complaining that I've got more water on my property, and when you look at the elevation of all the neighbors that are new houses going in,
So the low man in the
Is gonna get it all.
Is gonna get
Just-
it, and
and then-
that might be a wetland, or might be a river or stream, or it could be in a butter, or both. You know, the abutter has wetlands, and all of a sudden it's now worse. So I think we're within our rights to develop a policy that will go along with your stormwater bylaw that
Right, I
would
mean,
require this.
that's where I saw this coming in, as more of a stormwater thing, because we can't really control it under DEP any other way,
Right.
that it's a single-family house, but when you have a development on a road like this where it's 4 or 5, it's happening more and more, that,
And the roof runoff devices only take up to a certain storm, and then it overflows, which is fine, but you're getting some recharge, you're getting some slow up of the runoff. But having that plus, and we'll call them rain gardens, not basins. We want a rain garden on your property, and it's gonna at times have some
I mean, just-
ponding in it. And I think the criteria would be if you're filling the land to keep the foundation up out of the water table, or your septic system up out of the water table, if you have a rain garden to help trap some of that water, I think we're in the right
I mean, just
to
as an
ask for it.
example, looking at this one, if you look at facing the house to the right and the left, it literally slopes to the neighbors with no control. It'd be one thing if it was capturing it and moving it onto their own property into the back and letting it dissipate out that way.
So
But-
their argument is it isn't that much water to worry about, is that what the?
Well, that's how they've always thought about it in the past, when they developed a parcel for a single
you
family.
Get cumulative
Yeah,
homes.
and they're going up higher and higher to get out of the water
And it
table.
could be 4 different lot owners, so how do you
Right.
get
Change the
one?
whole topography of
I
it.
mean, like,
Yeah,
So South Street on the other side,
Yeah,
It's
where they built those
Mm.
houses,
It's higher.
if I was that
Yeah.
farmer in the spring, all of a sudden, I got a lot more water in the back of that, because it's
Yeah,
coming
it's
off of those
cumulative.
houses into my field,
yeah.
and now you've created a problem to them.
And it's funny, because I don't understand how, like, you got this house, or even the other one behind it. Here you got that ponding area over on this side, yet they gotta fill it up so high.
Yeah.
How can they even even think about building in there? It's, I mean, they could dig
Like, 'cause
That's
the water
correct.
table's so high, they had to go up. So if you've
But-
gotta
but
go up
even-
that
but
high,
still,
the
like,
water's gotta
you
go
would think that
somewhere.
the
And
water
they would
table's so
argue,
high
well,
that
there goes
you
my lawn.
It
I
would
want
do
it
it-
as big
it
a
would
lawn.
eliminate even kind
Right.
of, even building
I
in
know.
How
there.
high,
agree.
we have to, you know, how
Yeah.
high are we gonna
It's
allow them
almost
to
kinda like
build? I
the
mean,
water table should be like the wetland.
Right,
It's there.
okay,
You
yeah.
can't go into the wetland where there's like a pond and just put like a house up on stilts.
Right.
You know, it's like they're doing that here.
Right.
Anyway,
Stilts would be better.
well, I mean, but like nowadays, it's just, it's weird how they can go in there, cause I never thought some of these houses could be
Yeah,
put in some of these places, but yet,
It's
they
like a
are doing
bind.
it by,
right.
you know, the rules and
The
everything.
loopholes.
Yep.
But it's just funny how, it's like a loophole.
Mm.
So on that particular site that we're talking about on South Street, it was an old farm field, and doesn't have a lot of change in topography, except for where it does actually form that ponded effect way on the south end of it. But when they're doing their test pits for septic and for their engineering work, they're finding the seasonal high water table is running along the hard pan that holds that water up high, so that in the spring, the farmers wouldn't go out there and farm it because the fields were wet. They weren't wetlands, but they were wet because of that perched water table. So that they don't want that getting into the cellar, that they can't have it getting into the septic system, so they're raising it up. So any place that has what I call a perched water table, which is quite a bit of the land in West Bridgewater because of the soil structures that we have in West Bridgewater. You're gonna get more and more of these newer houses having to be built up like this. So it's gonna crop up quite often. And I think Tim is correct where we should be now talking about this a little bit more when all of those new owners get into these houses on South Street or elsewhere. I won't mention the street near a cornfield near the town river. You're gonna have these islands with ponds between the houses that are on islands, and people are gonna start complaining. How
As you
can I-
see on Scotland Street.
Oh,
towards
we
the
weren't
highway.
supposed to,
Yeah,
we weren't
I mean, the
supposed to
same
mention.
thing.
No, I'm talking.
Oh, the other
Not
side.
on the other side,
Oh,
like we had
highway,
the problem
You can
with.
see the water on,
Oh, yeah,
because it's raised up, and
Yeah.
that's basically the thing.
same issue,
With the water, going down the front.
yeah.
So do you
So with that
need
guy
new
who just built up his
regulations, or
yard.
we just
Well,
I think-
suggest this is what they have?
I think we can start off with a policy,
That's just-
and if
makes
somebody
sense.
complains, then we can hold a public hearing and have a regulation. But I think, if you set a policy and you're consistent with it.
So what they would do is they'd build it up, and then they kinda like leave
It would be
kinda like
run
dig out a
off to
section of
one
it, so water
section.
would run into
How
that.
do you get it from the other
Disperse.
side to run over?
Well,
there?
Well,
slowly,
but you'd either,
right?
Have
Yep.
plants in it that would
yeah,
absorb some of
either,
the-
example,
Okay.
you'd be creating a low spot here and
Right.
here with a planting, or you'd have to engineer it so you'd capture the water and shed it to the back where
Yeah.
it can dissipate on your own property, so you're not shedding it to somebody else's.
Or put a pond, like a pond area
Right, but
there.
if you put a low area here and here along the property line, you'd be catching all that water, it would be collecting in a low spot.
Yeah,
Plants and whatever you're planting it in a rain garden would be grabbing it, filtering
So
it,
it's
cleaning it,
almost
evaporating it.
but it would have to be
Yeah.
on their property.
Right,
Yeah.
Well,
right.
we don't know what elevation we're talking yet, or we'd have
Well, this
to
one's
come up
10
with
feet.
something.
Well, I mean, this is going, yeah, this
Be
is
different,
going from 68 to 74, so you're looking,
close to it.
that's a pretty good,
It is.
I noticed that
So-
on the way home tonight.
But do
I
you
was
need
looking
a
at that.
standard number?
So what I can try to do is put together some ideas, and
Yeah.
then we can discuss it at the
Okay.
next meeting, and,
Yeah.
we'll have to come up with some criteria that people
you put
will
a
be able to
20 or
follow
30 foot
consistently
stretch that
from-
was a foot
Yeah.
lower than the
Absolutely.
existing grade, that
It's not that
the
we're
red
trying to be.
would be enough to
inconvenient,
slow it.
Where's
and-
this running
Just
now?
look it
but
out.
without any
protect
of that?
somebody
Onto the
else's
neighbor's
property.
property.
and-
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, it's
It's
just,
not
You
the,
can't do
it's
that.
not, the-
and
How
See,
many
he
times in
says
the
that's
last couple
okay.
of months have we had
Why do
people
they
come
say
in and say,
because it's a
but it's
minimal
like you tell
amount.
people, it's like, if
And
they
you're
own this
doing
property
a
and they say,
single-family
somebody wants to give you
residential
so much
development,
money for
And
it,
therefore, a
what are
lot
you
of
gonna do
the
with it?
regulations
who
don't
was it gonna sell it?
pertain to single
But if it
family.
was somebody
They
else,
figure
it's like,
that's
you can't be
too
doing
much
that
of a
because
hardship
you
But
to
if you
have
had
to do.
can't be
someone on
building
the
it.
other
Yeah,
side,
they
Came and
can.
complained and said, oh,
They have the
this
right
is
to
going
sell
on.
it if they
And
want to sell it.
they think
You do,
normally
right?
it's.
But as you
in the
said,
past, it hasn't been that high.
that
Normally it's only a
section
3 or
of
4
Scotland
foot.
Street
Yeah,
that
and
we
it's
went
a
through,
I
drag.
can see it, plain as day.
right.
But I
each
mean,
one of those
yeah, you're going
neighbors
from
We'd have to come up
74 to
with some
68.
amount
And
we'd say
it
above
wasn't their
that, we
fault,
have
they
to
moved
do
in,
this.
Right.
and all of a sudden, they've got these issues in their
just do
back.
it.
Yeah,
If I was an abater, I'd just,
No,
as
that
a
one-
butter, I'd just say,
It's
I don't wanna
always
use it on
water
my
in the
property.
backyard.
Yeah.
It
Every
wasn't
time
coming
I
there
go
before.
On the highway every day going by
Before
there.
that went there, that water was
I have
staying
not
right in
seen
that
water,
field.
not yet, between
We
from
used to
probably
live off
over,
West Chestnut, and,
since January, I
there's
mean,
West
since December.
Chestnut, we were
There's
down here
always
in the
water in
sidewalk.
And proper grading,
water.
engineered grading would have
And as soon as you
pushed
got
it
the
to
house,
the
Many, many
way
years
back.
ago, they didn't have the rules,
Yeah.
and it flowed.
Yeah.
it
I knew that was gonna
flowed
happen.
like that.
I knew it, and his well's right there, right?
Especially in the spring with frozen
Yeah.
ground,
Off.
and you get,
It can't run into the basement.
So I'll work on a policy for our next meeting, and we can
Yeah,
discuss it,
good
and
idea. Yeah.
maybe finalize it in the next couple of meetings after that, but I think the time is right to start doing this.
Cause it's getting,
well, that being said, I will entertain a motion to close the stormwater management request for 55 South Street.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Moving and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
And I'll entertain a motion to issue the permit.
Motion to issue.
Second.
Moving and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
So on 426 East Center Street, this email, copy of his email addresses the fact that, and I'll read it into the record. We request that the commission continue its enforcement action regarding Mr. Steve Wood's land on East Center Street until its second hearing date in March 2020. As of this date, we have completed the wetland resource delineation work on site, conducted topographic survey of the land, and are now working to develop project plans for the site. We would appreciate an opportunity to meet with the commission's agent to obtain clarification on the specific details expected on the plan before we finalize and submit it. We greatly appreciate the commission's anticipated cooperation in this manner. So he had appraised me of the fact that they had done all of this work, and they're somewhat puzzled as to what can be done to fix the situation. And I said, I have to see a plan before we can even talk about it. And so if everybody didn't know, I was on vacation last week, so they didn't have an opportunity to meet with me. So now that I'm back and up and running again, I can meet with them, and well, obviously Azu's going away for some period of time, but once he gets back, we can sit down and go over what I saw on the ground when I did my inspection under that search warrant, and then see what I see on the plan. I might be able to give him some suggestions. But to sort of indicate what the problem is out there, if they're kind of baffled, then you know that there's some major situations out there that need to be dealt with. So I can only, at this point, say that I have some ideas, but I need to see the plan before I can actually say anything with any definitive feeling about it, so.
I mean, weren't we talking about removal?
Well, I believe that there has to be some removal, but there may be a way to keep some there that won't be over what the suggested rate of application could be. So let's say he has 4 acres of land, and there's a pile that, if it was properly spread, would amount to the
Right.
proper application rate, then leave that pile.
Yeah.
If there's a pile out in the wetlands that needs to be taken out and removed from the property and the wetlands restored, those kind of things. And I'm
Yeah.
only guessing at
Yeah.
this point, but
Gotta get out there.
there obviously is some concern that the engineer has. Otherwise, he would have just said, oh, we'll just do X, Y, and Z, and that'll address the issue. They're kind of, at this point, baffled as to what they can do, so I think they need some direction. And I can't do that just
No.
by being a mind reader, so I
I
need
mean,
to see.
using
the
this
plan.
as a
Dumping
nutrient
ground.
management type plan in a forest, in a wetland, accessing it is gonna be a little difficult.
Yep.
So it could be that if they're gonna use this material, it's gonna be hand or low machine or small machine wheelbarrows or like gator type tractors or small something with big rubber tires and not tracks and not tearing up everything to incorporate it in.
Yeah,
And
right.
so it, like John said, until he sees what's there and where
What was the
everything is.
original reason? Was it,
it was to
To
use
spread
it,
it?
yeah, this, well,
well, spread it,
it,
yeah.
yeah,
It's-
applying
is
it to the soil
Is it
and then,
active agricultural land?
It was supposedly designated as a tree farm.
Okay. I
And-
remember that, yeah.
Spreading a nutrient supplement like that or an enhancement
Yeah,
is acceptable,
right.
but a tree farm that is not like Christmas trees, but just regular trees.
standing timber, a forestry
That's what
plan.
a forestry.
And I
Needs,
never seen this applied to a
No.
forest before, so
Yeah,
that's why
I
I'm
know.
curious how they're planning on doing this.
needs a,
Which I'm
let's
thinking
say
the
a
state might be
minimal
too.
amount of nutrient enhancement.
yes.
Whereas something like a Christmas tree farm would need a lot of it,
Sure.
or let's say more.
Yeah,
And a hayfield would need that much more, and a
Right.
cornfield would need
Gotcha.
that much more. So, I mean, it's all a progression,
But
depending on what's
We
going.
didn't even know the wetland delineation.
Right.
Okay.
So we know we now have a delineation, we have a site plan showing the boundaries and the wetland, and we also have topographic information showing how the slope of the
And
land.
there's been no more dumping in there?
No. No. So we're making progress.
Okay.
So we don't really need to continue that, because we don't really have a hearing or
No.
anything yet.
No, we
It's just an
don't.
enforcement action, and hopefully
I would just say we could recommend
putting it on the agenda for
for the
March 17th.
March, second hearing date in March, so
So
it's the
seven-
17th. Yeah.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to make it on the agenda for the March 17th.
I'll make that motion.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And I think that's just
And the
paperwork.
rest is just signatures for everything we, oh, no, I'm sorry. 582 North Elm Street is a request for a certificate of compliance. That was an old file number that had never received a certificate of compliance. So I think it's like the second or third owner. And so I did an inspection, I looked at the order of conditions. We've received all the proper documents, so I'm recommending issuing a certificate of compliance without a bond.
All right. Any questions?
No.
Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 582 North Elm Street.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Moving second, all those in favor? So moved. All right.
Now, the rest are all signatures for actions we've already taken. The Maple Street Medical Marijuana Dispensary was closed at the last hearing and voted to issue. Maple Street was tonight and voted to issue. The Pleasant Street was the billboard sign, that was closed, and a motion to issue orders, and also for Turnpike Street. We still need some documents to catch up before we actually release the orders of conditions, but we'll be able to make sure that's all accomplished.
If anybody have anything else?
All right.
Hearing none, then I can entertain a motion to adjourn. I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor?
All right.
So moved.